Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, or welcome if it is your first time here. I'm so excited to see you today, and I have a really interesting topic for us to talk about today. So, we are talking about charitable giving in the home building industry and how we can turn that experience into a more personable and memorable experience rather than just the yucky, look at me, I made a donation, yay me feeling. I think we've all seen those kind of campaigns and felt a little weird about them. So today we're going to talk about what that can actually look like, how you can bring your buyer in to participate in the giving and support that you're doing in your community, and how this approach can actually strengthen your marketing as well. If that sounds interesting to you, please stick around and we're going to get right into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the marketing and mindset show for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, and around here we go beyond pretty pictures and we get honest about what's working, what's not, and what it really takes to build better brands, better experiences, and better teams. You'll find creative ideas, practical strategies, and conversations that actually matter. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. All right, everybody. Like I said in my intro, we're talking about charitable giving and how you can actually use that in your marketing and bring people into that story as you are running these campaigns. So I'm super excited to introduce you to my guest today. I have with me Mark Kovats. He is the community builder and co-founder over at Goodness Giveaway. And I am just so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. We had a really cool conversation before this podcast, and I think this is a really interesting topic to have on the show. So thank you, Mark, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. So excited to continue our combo.
This was really cool because I love to have topics on the show that not everybody is talking about or I don't hear everywhere. And this is one of those times. I'm really excited just to dive right in. Before we do that, though, before we dive into all of the things, I would love if you could give us a brief introduction of you, what's your background, how did you get into the role that you have today, and kind of the story behind Goodness Giveaway.
I think the biggest thing for me is when I was actually engaged in a company's charitable giving efforts myself, totally transformed my future career path and where I wanted to go. And that was the first moment that I realized that I really wanted to be in this space and help others make a difference as well.
That's awesome. And you guys work with home builders, but also other businesses as well, right?
Yes. So I've been in the purpose space and charitable giving space for almost a decade, and have been lucky enough to work with and built products for some of the world's coolest brands like Nike, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and have generated hundreds of millions of dollars to really meaningful causes. And excited to share some of those insights that I've gained over those almost decade, and hope it can help home builders in this pivotal time in the market.
The market is crazy right now. A lot is shifting. And the good news is, though, I feel like home builders are looking for new ways to set themselves apart. They're looking for new things to try and things to do. It's a perfect time to start like implementing new ideas. And just what you've told me so far, I think this is a really cool thing to be bringing to home builders. So let's talk about kind of your background in charitable giving. What made you start noticing the difference between companies that just give money to charities and things and ones that actually get people involved in that giving?
The uncomfortable answer first, actually. Most companies think that giving money and engaging customers in giving is the same activity, but they're not. So this one is a transaction that happens behind the scenes, and the other is a conversation that happens with your customers. I've spent a long time watching brands write checks and get almost nothing in return for that, because writing a check and telling someone about it after the fact does none of the psychological work that I can give you concrete examples for. We actually did a study with a well-known telecom brand, and telecoms are great because they're really low trust and people aren't really excited to talk about their provider. This particular company was spending tens of millions of dollars every year in the community. But when we asked their customers about what they're giving, what they were giving to and who they were giving to, they had no idea. So they had this vague sense that they were doing something, but they couldn't tell us the impact they were having or who they were donating to. Then we gave them $10 of the brand's money to give to their charity of choice, and everything changed. One of the gentlemen had a daughter who was going through treatment at the local children's hospital, and he got to send $10 there. And he told us almost in tears that it had made him more likely to switch providers, more likely to recommend the brand to friends. And that's not something that a coupon or a promotion they don't produce reactions like that or connections like that. A company just deciding to donate to a cause and putting it out on a press release or a social post doesn't produce that reaction either. So the mechanism is agency, it's not generosity. So giving them the agency to do that. And we see the same pattern from the charity side as well. So we've activated some of our 2 million charities in our network and asked the charities to share the campaign to their followers to claim funds for their cause. And these charities create their own posts, which generate real organic reach into their audiences that already follow and trust them. So again, instead of your brand posting, hey, look what we did, you're mobilizing thousands of charities to share your brand on your behalf. And the message is coming from a charity that they already know and trust. If I can summarize the shift that I keep seeing over and over again, industry after industry, is that companies that give money and get a tax receipt get a mild sense of goodwill. But the companies that act and engage people in their giving and give them a real choice, ask them a real question, they get trust, they get data, they get advocacy, and they get leads out of these as well. It's the same dollars that are going, just a completely different return, because one version's transactional and the other one's really relationship based. And the other lesson I've learned the hard way, which is how I learned most of my lessons, is that you never really know what people are going through. And you can't just ask them, hey, are you okay? It's weird coming from a stranger, right? But when you give them the power to give to something that they care about, you show them, hey, I see you, I'm here, and I want to help. And that's what real friends do. That's what you would do as a friend. So that's the power of actually showing up and caring and making a real difference.
All of us here in home building, especially in sales, like we're just trying to make relationships with people. We're trying to connect with people. So the goals align there on all of these things. But I think it's funny because a lot of businesses, I see this on social media all the time, when they give to charity, it's almost like we're making this big post, look what we did, yay us, pat us on the back. And it feels very like self-congratulatory. Like I feel like it's yucky sometimes. And I know, and even influencers will do this a lot too. It's like, oh, I went to the food bank and gave all this water. Look how amazing I am. And it just does not have a positive reaction with some people. And I've worked with builders where they were worried about that. We want to do something good, but is this going to actually help our image? And is it going to come across the right way? This is a really interesting way of, I think, getting around that and making sure that this is a positive thing.
That self-congratulation and self-promotion is something that people have become numb to, especially as you look at the evolution of purpose. And if you look at the originators of, let's say, Tom Shoes, Patagonia, to where we are today, every brand is claiming to do good in the world, and people have really become numb to those posts and they've become commonplace. So how do you differentiate and stand out? And the evolution we see is the brands that engage people in their giving and actually bring them along for the ride are the ones who are winning.
Yeah, because I do think there is a place. Obviously, we want to do good as humans and as businesses. And I think that's a really noble thing. And I know a lot of people come at it in a really good place, right? Their heart's in the right place, their goals are in the right place. But we can also look at this as a marketing initiative too, right? We're going to get marketing benefits. So I'd love if you can talk about some of the marketing benefits that you can get if giving is done properly.
I think even just going back to why you would do the giving in the first place, like why are all these brands actually investing and giving so much? And the stats and data that I've collected over nearly a decade are really tell the story of why this work is so important. And I think the biggest lesson I've had is people want to buy from and work for companies that are making a difference in the world. And some of the stats around that from Cone Communications, 87% of consumers will purchase a product because a company advocated for an issue that they care about. And 88% would purchase products from a purpose-driven company, with 70% saying that they'd want to actually work for that company.
Wow.
And then the other particularly relevant stat for home builders is that 84% of consumers say that the more a business engages them in their charitable giving decisions, the more trust they have in that business. And the other big piece is according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, which surveyed 15,000 respondents, 88% of people actually rank trust just as important as price and quality. So it's right up there with those top differentiators. And trust is one of the most underused levers in a competitive building market. And on the inverse of that, 81% of consumers say that it's a deal breaker when making a purchase. Most home builders know how important trust is, which is why they talk about their awards and their third party achievements. And purpose is just another lever that you can pull with buyers to build that trust and stand out from the competition. But if brand trust as important as price and quality, and you can build more of that than your competitors through how you're giving, then you're competing on a dimension that nobody else is even playing on. And the builders losing on price right now aren't necessarily losing because they're more expensive. Some of them are losing because they just haven't built that trust to become that builder of choice.
Those are really high percentages, very high. A lot of people really care about this, which makes sense. But it's hard for companies because you can't donate to every charity, right? You're going to have to make some choices at some point. Finding that charity that your buyer is going to connect with is kind of hit or miss.
100%. And technology's come a long way and has helped us in this space a lot. And it's interesting that you mentioned the choice piece because the other stat that's really important is 84% of consumers believe that they should have a say in how businesses allocate its charitable funds. So they want, your customers are asking for this. But yeah, you're right. How do you deliver that experience and really deeply understand what it is that they care about so you can align that with what they care about? Yeah,
Yeah.
most builders are writing the check and they pick the cause and post about it on social and they move on. But buyers want more and no one's really giving them that experience right now. And that's the gap between what buyers expect and what most builders are delivering is, and that's exactly where that opportunity lives.
Okay, so I think when you're talking, and we talked about this before as well, when you're speaking about, okay, we got to bring the buyer in and do things to make them feel like they participated in this giving, my mind goes to like when you go to Target and they ask you, do you want to donate $1 to kids' backpacks or whatever, right? And it's always at the checkout, and you click yes. And it also feels very, you feel really bad being like, no, I don't want to help kids in their backpacks, right? There's this pressure. So is that what you're talking about? And I think the answer is no. And what is it exactly that we can do?
We've lumped giving into these three big buckets. So there's the traditional giving, which is big companies writing checks, sponsoring some golf tournaments, showing up in the community, and then posting about it on social. And then the giving is real and it really matters. But the problem is it's invisible to your customers. Social media posts, as I mentioned, barely get viewed and can come across as self promoting. And the buyers who are actually walking through your homes on a Saturday afternoon have no idea that you sponsored that golf tournament. And then the other piece, customer funded giving, which you mentioned at checkout, roundup, text to give. So this is the companies trying to amplify its giving by getting customers involved, asking them for their money. And the problem is, from a consumer point of view, this doesn't feel great, right? Nobody wants to give their funds to a brand, especially for home builders. This can come off as really tone deaf. Your buyer is already making and writing the biggest check of their life. Asking them to give on top of that can be really off putting. If you're the big company, if you want to give and use your money, that should be up to you. So a lot of the times it actually has the inverse effect of what you want. And then the third approach, which is the one we advocate for, is this idea of participatory giving. And so that's engaging people in your giving and getting your customers to participate in that, getting others to share your message for you, and creating authentic engagement and authentic moments to really drive those conversations and those connections.
So, how do you do that? How do you create meaningful moments without making it feel forced or transactional?
I think the big difference is that you're trying to create a genuine moment and an authentic gift. If you're going into anything with the mindset of this is a transaction in any relationship, people are going to pick up on that. You're not asking customers to give their information. The company's doing the customer a favor and mentioning what takes 10 seconds. And it's the framing that removes that transactional feel entirely because there's no ask embedded in it. The lead information is just a byproduct of that.
Now, when you say the lead information, tell me, what does that mean?
So, as part of the process, you actually gather the individual's information as part of this and are able to follow up with them after the campaign. And you can use that as a promotional opportunity or talking about the impact that you were able to have together and following up and building community that way.
Gotcha. So, what it sounds like to me, then, what you're saying is, as the company, you have your budget that you're going to be doing for donations. And instead of writing one lump check and saying, here's what we did, you break that up and give your buyers the ability to make choices on where that money goes. And then in order to do that, you get their information. And are you essentially making the donation in their name, or how does that work?
Great question. So yeah, we help you put your charity dollars into the hands of your customers to drive what are the business outcomes that you're looking to get out of it are. And the donation is made from the brand, so you get a tax receipt for all of the giving. And we actually work with businesses to understand what their main business goals are and how they can use their charitable giving to drive those ROIs that they're looking to get. One of the big ones we hear from builders consistently is that only between 10 and 30% of show home visitors ever leave their contact information. So if you don't know this number for your org, you can look at the foot traffic report and compare it to your CRM to just see exactly what percent you're capturing. But just using a generic example of like a mid-range builder who has 500 visitors a month and is only capturing 30% of leads, that's 11 home sales potentially a month that you're missing out on if you use the standard conversion rate of 3 to 5% close and an average home price of say 700,000. That's 11 home sales a month or $7.3 million of revenue potentially walking out your door. And when you extrapolate out that for a whole year, we're talking almost $88 million of revenue. We actually have a calculator on our website if you wanted to run the numbers for you and see what that actually looks like for your company, or we walk through this together when we meet with them. But as a marketer, you're spending a lot of money driving people to your show homes in the first place, right? These are high value leads who are taking the time to come visit and tour your homes. And you need that visibility into who's visiting and have a way to follow up with them. So this is a tool that you can use to do that. And by doing it as a give to them instead of an ask for their information.
People don't like to fill out contact forms. Getting people to fill it out and then also getting the sales team to enter it then into the system. As a marketer, there's multiple steps where this can break down. I definitely think a lot of builders are always thinking about like, how do we get more information from our buyers that are coming through, especially when they have events and they've got an influx of people. It can be increasingly hard to do that. But that information is just critical, right? Like you said, those are potential sales that you could have. So this process essentially that you're talking about is gives them a more natural reason to give their information rather than like, I'm going to call you and want to sell you something later. So give me info so I can do that.
Exactly. The biggest thing is that this isn't an ask, it's a give. You're giving them the opportunity to give to something that they're really passionate about. I mentioned in the data how 84% of consumers want that. And that information is a result of the give, but not the reason for it.
Now, what other information that can you gather from this? Because this is going to be more than a conversation than, hey, fill out our reg card, right? You're going to be talking about the charity and just so many more things. So what other information would be beneficial to the home builder to be getting?
This actually integrates with any existing process. It's an additive piece. You don't have to change anything about your current process. And we've found that 78% of the leads that we've been able to capture using this tool, otherwise the builder wouldn't have had. So these are net new leads on top of what they have. And the conversion rate that we've seen from builders today, I mentioned that 10 to 30%, we've seen upwards of a 470% increase in leads at show homes that they're able to capture in those high performing communities because people are really engaged with it and want to share it.
That's so interesting. So what kind of insights can the builders learn from actually the causes that people are choosing to support?
You get to learn exactly what it is that your community cares about. So a lot of people are using data and maybe talking to customers. Some aren't. Some are just choosing what they care about and giving to that. But if you are using data, it can also be really tough just to narrow down one or a handful of causes. So that's why opening this up to choice really makes a big impact because nobody knows the needs of your community like the community themselves. They're the ones who really know what needs to happen, and empowering them to make that choice is a really powerful thing.
So essentially, you're learning stories from your buyers. You have the opportunity to chat with them about what matters to them and start building data around that, which we don't really have a lot of opportunities to do.
The stories and the connections that come out of this are honestly one of the biggest reasons why I'm so passionate about the work. It's really amazing to hear the connections that sales teams have had and building those relationships with folks have had just by asking them, hey, who are you giving to?
We're always trying to think of ways that we can connect with our buyers, like I said, and then ways that we can also use that information to make the buying experience better, to make our own marketing better. So, what are some ways that you could use these stories that you gather from your buyers as part of your own promotional marketing, but without making it feel yucky?
To be honest, I actually don't think that we've 100% mastered this. There's so much power in these stories and connections that what we're doing is letting the charities and individuals tell and share the stories themselves and amplifying those stories from the brand, which people are excited to tell the story because it's a unique thing and they got to give back to something that they're passionate about. And there's definitely more that we could be doing here. And I know some really smart marketers are probably listening right now. So any suggestions, holler at me and we'd love to tell those stories with you.
I think it opens a whole new marketing avenue, right? We all have our content pillars and we've got all of these things that were pretty standard, but this kind of gives us a way to really connect with our buyers in a different way. And I think it would be really interesting to see builders that are integrating something like this and how they're actually able to use it. So I don't know. That's very exciting as a marketer to have a new idea out there. It's really exciting to get to play with.
And I'd love to elaborate more on some of the stories that we've heard from folks because I mentioned how passionate I am about these stories. And we were doing some show home visits and listening to people and their feedback on the campaign. And I had one visitor look me in the eyes and tell me a story about how when she was a little girl, every weekend she would ride shotgun with her dad in the truck for 10 years. And he would take her all around the city to deliver meals for Meals on Wheels, and how it was such a key part of her childhood, and just genuinely thanked me for including them in the campaign. And it's moments like those that are real honest conversations that aren't about floor plans or lots. They're just human to human connection and around something that means so much to them,
Mhm.
and empowering them to give back to that cause just builds a trust that's frankly really hard to get in normal conversations. I mentioned we've heard from salespeople about the connections that they're building around, whether it's about adopting pets from the local animal shelter or giving back to their son or daughter's school that they go to. These are only conversations that happen when you align what you care about with what they care about and ask them to give back to that. The only way to do that is to actually give.
So you brought up a good point about the sales team are the ones who are going to be doing this with our buyers. They're the ones that are getting the stories, but they're also going to be the ones that are introducing this opportunity to the buyers. Do you have any tips for salespeople to introduce this idea without making it sound like some kind of promotion or another thing that they have to do?
I think the big difference is that you're trying to create a genuine moment and an authentic gift. If you're going into anything with the mindset of transactional in any relationship, people pick up on that. You're not asking the customer to give their information up front. The company's doing the customer a favor and mentioning what takes 10 seconds to give. That framing removes that transactional feel entirely because there's no ask embedded in it. The lead information is just a byproduct of that.
So basically, you're working into your normal conversations, but you are giving something to them in order to then support the charity. So it's not a transaction, essentially, is how like the mindset of when you're having that conversation.
You got it.
Okay. And so then how can marketing and sales work together then to capture the stories and the insights from these customer interactions that are going to happen?
That relationship is super important. And to be honest, I don't think we've 100% mastered how to tell those stories and promote that as well as we could.
I think there's a huge opportunity there. I really do. I think something that when people start to master this, I think we can really start connecting on a really deeper level and growing the opportunities to do that because one to one is great and everybody who walks in is great. But the more you can do that and highlight it, that benefit's only going to grow.
I have the same hunch, and I think you're spot on. There's just so much power in creating those connections and the stories that come out of them. Telling them how you tell them authentically and engage people in that is, I think, getting them to tell it from their side of view and you helping promote that. Or after the campaign, collectively looking at what is the impact you were able to have with your community. And it's really about making them the hero in the journey, right? This isn't about you as a brand. This is
Mhm.
about the impact your community had together. And it's really building that story that is really impactful.
The show is marketing and mindset shifts because A lot of this, like we have to open our mind and we have to change the way that we think about our marketing, our giving, our sales, and come up with new innovative ideas. If you truly want to stand out, that's what you have to do. In this case, it's like shifting from look at what my company did to look at what we did together.
Traditionally, giving has been a very top down approach where you might have a giving committee or executive leadership kind of directing how you give those funds. And this is really flipping that paradigm upside down and saying, looking at it from bottom up. So you're saying, what do your customers care about and how do you help support that? And that's really the biggest mindset shift in giving that we're seeing.
And knowing truly what matters in your community and to your buyers, I can see a lot of different ways you can start pulling that into marketing messaging. You can start talking about have that charity come to your event and set up a booth. You're just getting more and more information about what your buyers care about. That's only going to help you throughout your journey of trying to sell homes.
And I think two tangible examples that come to mind that hopefully get the wheels turning for the audience is number one, maybe you know that your customers are animal lovers, and that's a big differentiator for your brand. So, as you mentioned, you could partner with, let's say, a local animal shelter and host an adoption event at one of your show homes, offering to pay for the adoption fee during the event. And again, personal, authentic, engaging. You can bet that if you help someone find their new fur family, you're going to be top of mind when they're ready to buy a home. Another example, here where I am, we have a lot of South Asian buyers, and cricket is a big draw. So you could partner with the local cricket club and for a learn to play a cricket event or even sponsor a match. And if you're thinking that all of this sounds amazing, but hey, I just don't have time to organize something like that, we're happy to help. And we actually act as like an external agency you work with today. So think of us like a goodness agency. We can help you tap into our network of 2 million causes across North America to bring something like that together and ensure you get the outcomes that you're looking for out of the event.
That's awesome. It's definitely something that, a lot of businesses, we've got a lot on our plate, especially over here in marketing. We're just doing a million things. So having support in order to do something like that is incredible. I know a lot of teams that would be like, yes, please.
Amazing.
If there was anybody, and hopefully some of our listeners are interested in changing up how they're doing their giving after this conversation, where could they connect with you and learn more about Goodness Giveaway?
Best place is our website. You can just Google Goodness Giveaway. And we also have an offer for anyone who's made it this far, just a no obligation evaluation of your current giving strategy and community engagement. If you go to the website, you can book a time with us and we can review your budget and how to drive real ROI with, like we've talked about today.
I will put all the links down in the description box for you guys. So go ahead and check that out. And then if you have any additional questions, comments, or just want to chat about what we've talked about today, please feel free to leave a comment as well. I'm always in the comment box. I always invite all my guests to also be in the comment box. If there's anything that you wish we would have talked about in this episode or questions that we didn't address, please put those down there and I'll be down there. I'd love to chat with you all. So, everybody, now thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of our listeners. And Mark, I appreciate you also for coming and sharing with us today. This was a really fun conversation, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of opportunities that I never even thought of that we have in companies. So, I really appreciate you spending your time with me today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for having me on. And I just wanted to leave one final aspirational thought, if I could. This was done by the Harvard Business School, actually published a study in their Journal of Experimental Psychology, showing that organizations that make charitable donations on behalf of employees or customers trigger subsequent charitable behaviors. As home builders who are in one of the most important industries of actually building these communities, you have real power to change and improve the communities that you're building that goes beyond just one-time donations. Your good deeds can live on like ripples in a pond and expand and improve the community as they grow by engaging your communities in your giving. Everyone starts their journey somewhere, and you could be the catalyst that gets people on that path to spreading more good, because the world needs more good now more than ever.
Oh, I love that. Perfect way to end the episode. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Sarah.
everybody, please like this episode, comment below, like I said, and make sure you come back next week for our episode as well. Thank you for spending your time with us today, and I hope to see you next week. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.